Hello.
Hey, what's
those
up?
of you that are on audio forms right now, you haven't noticed yet. But those of you on YouTube, the Dungeon Crawl Podcast, that's not the actual channel, it's just the Dungeon Crawl. But you can't find us because there's a silly video game of a similar name
Dude,
that
I'm
exists.
so angry about that.
Hasn't copyrighted it, but it's still there. We've got a friend. I will let him refer to himself so I know which name to use first. I'll let him choose. So feel free to give a little introduction here.
Hi, I'm D. I run a Pathfinder 2nd Edition game for Braxton on every once in a while. So
it's so weird.
Good.
It's so weird to hear him not use that name.
I'm glad you said your credentials, because I was going to ask your credentials. Why are you important to have in this podcast?
Yeah.
It's all I play Pathfinder. I love Pathfinder 2nd Edition.
It's not even that. Like, it's not even just you play Pathfinder, but there's like, at one point you were at like 6 or 7 games. I think it might have gone down recently, but you play a lot.
Consume
the audience doesn't need to know that I play 5 games a week, 4 of which are Pathfinder 2nd Edition. They don't need to know that.
I've mentioned it before on the podcast. If
I know.
If any of you have heard me talk about the games that I play whenever I stream and whatnot, one of these games I do stream online, which due to recent events, I can't shout out the stream. Possibly, we'll see what goes on. But he's been an awesome GM. The amount of information he knows about Pathfinder is second to none for people that I'm aware of that play the game.
How long have you been playing?
Ever since they released the what's the first adventure called? I forget what it's called. But it was like 2-3 years ago when they started releasing the early access stuff. One of my friends was just like, hey, there's something else we could play instead of 5th edition D&D. And they showed it. I'm just like, okay, let's give it a shot. And every game they have run since then has been Pathfinder.
Damn.
Nice. So you start with the 1st edition or just with the 2nd?
I've had a little bit of experience with 1st edition Pathfinder, but by the time I got into it, there's so many character options that it was just way too overwhelming to really get into it.
I feel that.
So when I heard there was a 2nd edition, I liked what I did of the first one, but when the 2nd came out, I was just like, okay, this is a chance to kind of start new and get something fun. And it has stuck.
Yeah, I feel like there's another perspective we should get about Pathfinder 1st edition. You said that you played it a little bit or have checked it out, but it overwhelmed you. But I think it'd be good to get a perspective on it, because we've only read 2nd edition. I don't know much about 1st.
I've read a lot of the adventure paths for 1st edition, but that's about it. And some of the monster stuff. So the lore and then Paizo's work is second to none.
They do a lot of lore. I do have a friend who is actually in our Abomination Vaults game that has played a lot of 1st edition Pathfinder and does know that lore if you want to ask him at some point.
Ooh. Okay. Yeah, so it's been kind of a long week of lore reading, I would say. As what we're doing here today is talking about the Book of the Dead for Pathfinder 2nd Edition that has recently released.
Yeah.
And it's a chonker.
It's $49.99 for the whole book, or the PDF $14.99. That's a steal.
Insane. What does that tell you about the production costs of shit that comes out? But like we talked about a couple episodes ago, the physical portion of tabletop games, I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon, even if it's tough to create them.
Yeah.
But yeah, before we jump in it too much, we already introduced T. Thanks so much for being here with us and helping dissect this thing, because I don't think I have enough value to add from perspective of a player yet. So I really wanted that perspective here.
Yeah, nice. Someone that understands the mechanics a little better than us saying, this sounds so cool. Check this out.
But
no problem.
He's Ryan.
Which direction he's Braxton over here.
This is the Dungeon Crawl. Let's talk about the Book of the Dead. Again, our reviews here are less so like critical point of views on it, more just kind of people chatting about being excited or not excited about a release and waffle. We're literally in a Discord call. It's like you were here with us, I suppose. Do we just go ahead and start with the whole recommendation shtick in case people don't want to be spoiled like we usually do? Yeah,
I'd say so. I guess I'll preface by saying the first about 70 pages or so are like player centric. And then after that, it's pretty much all GM stuff. So players, I guess if you do pick up this book, then you can read the first 70 pages, then don't go any farther. Unless you want to see all the extra fun stuff. There's an adventure in the back, so definitely don't read that. What we usually do is we'll break up and say, this is the recommendations for players. We recommend picking it up. I mean, like I said, it's $14.99 for a PDF for 70 pages for player stuff. So that could be a good deal for you. And then we'll talk about GM stuff if you should pick it up if you're a GM. So I guess I'll start with players. I don't really play much Pathfinder stuff, but I will say the 70 pages in here for players is incredible stuff. It's the first 2 chapters, the first 2 chapters, which is incredible stuff. Even just the flavor text, reading that can get you excited, get you thinking about different stuff, thinking about different RP options. There's a lot of, we talked about this actually right before we started recording, but it's one of the most comprehensive Pathfinder books I've ever seen. It has the archetypes, creatures, items, lore, and adventure. I mean, they just tossed everything in the kitchen sink into this book.
Yeah.
So I'd say if you're a player, I definitely recommend it already. I'd say pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
At least the PDF, maybe $14.99.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yes,
the
the
caveat I
PDF.
was going to give.
Yeah, definitely something to pick up.
From my perspective, I tend to lean more on genres for recommendations here, and I'll give the caveat of if you're not interested in undead player options or killing the undead player options,
Monster Slayer type stuff,
it's not for you. So I will recommend it wholeheartedly if you even have a simile of interest into those things.
Yeah, if you've ever wanted to play a skeleton or a lich or something, then it's your fancy, I guess.
Playing liches and vampires is some of those super controversial stuff in 5e, at least, because we're like, how would that work? There's so many debilitations. It's evil and blah, 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 blah. And since this is framed in sort of a lore-friendly in-universe perspective, it directly addresses those things as a perfect platform to do that. So for players, it's like a half recommendation. It depends on your interest into this sort of subject matter there. DMs, it's something I really wanted to jump into today and get your perspective on, because it almost feels like DMs are obligated and GMs are obligated to own every book if they're good, which I'd say this is one of those. And why wouldn't you want? Some
groups will pitch together and say, hey, it's $50. You give me 10, you give me 10. Yeah, I'll pay 10 and we can all buy the book together. But I think, it's expected a lot of times for the GM to have the things at their disposal.
Yeah. So I'm going to say big recommendation for GM, because one of the most common enemy types and NPC types is undead things.
Yeah. And
if you're playing in Pathfinder, since this is in universe, it's such a relevant and informative piece of lore and world building too. It's so valuable, but it's like how many things are you just obligated to buy? $15, not too bad, I will say. DLC is a common thing in the world nowadays, but that's kind of my opinion right now.
Yeah, the entire thing is 222 pages, so subtract that from 70. Yeah, subtract that from 70. That's how much GM content is in here.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. I would definitely, player-wise, I would definitely recommend it in the same vein that you do, Braxton, is if players want something that is undead-related, killing, anything like that, it's great, but it doesn't really fill the niche for everyone. Some people don't care about undead, don't get the book. The nice thing about Paizo stuff is Archives of Nethys gets updated very regularly, which is the SRD, the online SRD, and everything is free. You can literally access it. You just don't have it organized in this nice fashion. GM-wise, there's a lot of lore. If you like lore, it's perfect. It's wonderful. I'm not the biggest lore person, so Galarian lore, hit or miss for me, but they do write very well, and this book is written in a very, very nice way. There's also templates for monsters for GMs, which I love.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah,
I think that's something Ryan pointed out even before we
100%.
Jumped into it.
Yeah, I definitely love this for GMs. I as someone that doesn't play a lot of Pathfinder, I think this is, if you like undead related topics, skeletons and liches and vampires and all that jazz, I'd say even if you're playing a different system, the lore and ideas that are in here, I think it's worth the price of entry. Because I just devoured all the stuff I could find in here, and I already do that with Pathfinder, like bestiary type stuff, because they include the stat block along with a bunch of exciting, cool lore. So I definitely recommend, if you have the $49.99 for the book or $14.99 for the PDF, to pick it up.
Yeah, man, I know there's Path Builder already to consolidate things, and from your experience, how quickly do things get integrated into that like this?
I'm pretty sure all of as far as I'm aware, the Path Builder stuff's already implemented for the Book of the Dead.
Seriously? Is this just like open source? Yes. People just throw shit in?
No, this is Path Builder is done by one person. Jeez. It is done entirely by one person. I think he might have a very small team now, because he may have made an agreement with Paizo and Archives of Nethys. Mm-hmm. But I was literally making characters for the upcoming campaign with some people in this Discord.
Yeah.
And it took us like maybe 20, 30 minutes to make level 3 characters because of Path Builder. And the options were there.
Man. I think the way Pathfinder is structured, with how much information and how many feats come out, that consolidating it into an online resource for those people that are more easily attracted to that sort of thing, like D&D Beyond, helps it so much more, because even over 5th edition, this works in that format and needs it even more just because of how much content Paizo releases. I'm so excited to know about that.
A lot of feats.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yes.
That's what it hinges on, what seems like 5e is kind of going towards with some of the new stuff that's coming out. But I guess that wraps it up in terms of our like spoiler-free recommendations for those of you if you want to go. Yeah, if you want to go buy it, save it for I don't know, marriage or something. Go get it now. But I'll jump it over to Ryan. Usually he likes to start off with some credits and whatnot if he's got that.
I don't, but
I mean, they're right there.
They are right there. So it's Josh Bullman and Jessica Catalan. I did not check to see what they did before, but I imagine they've been busy with their stuff before I can look at it real fast.
Yeah.
But I like the way this book is broken up. It's 5 different chapters. Each chapter is baked into the lore, the framing device that this guy Geb is telling you all about, this crazy adventures and the area and letting you know and everything that's going on. So it's prayers for the living, hymns for the dead, the grim crypt, lands of the dead, and then March of the Dead. You can see there's definitely a dead theme. But I do want to shout out first before we really dive into it, the artwork throughout the entire book. Just, I mean, even just the cover book, the cover page is
There's
delicious.
something right off the back on page 9 that I saw that even through the entire book, nothing had beaten it. And it's this undead corpse with like clovers and twigs growing out of it, sitting on sort of like that. It's one of the most striking pieces.
Yeah. And I mean, like the one that's on the first real page with like the lore on it, where it has the guy like on the left and the right.
It's Geb. God. Geb when he was alive and Geb when he's I don't think he's a lich. He's just a ghost as far as I'm aware, but I don't know 100%.
Yeah. And this whole thing is framed as a recent steal in terms of Geb's prized tomes. They finally found this, and this is the first showing of all this info. So it's really fun and gets you into it. For those of you that like to just kind of jump in, you might first say, oh, okay, well, this is just a bunch of fluff that I don't care about. But there's a lot of visual and artistic design that shows you, hey, this is lore and hey, this is content. Yeah. So if you kind of train your eye to look for it, you'll be able to skim through it pretty easily. I try to do 2 pass-throughs where I'm like, okay, like thumb throwing it, seeing what's there, and then going like page by page, paragraph by paragraph. And I think it works well.
So I did check real fast. The guy on it, Jason Bullman, he's the guy that like made Pathfinder originally.
Oh yeah.
So he's been around the block. And then Jessica Catalan, they have helped out on a lot of stuff. On Pathfinder Society Guide, the Knights of Last Wall, and they've written a few adventures as well. Different sections in the adventure path. So they're very cool. They've definitely been involved in this stuff for a while.
Damn. All right. So they've got the experience on this book in particular.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
There was something that ran out to me right away as a little bit obtuse, and I think it's just because I'm not used to reading things
like
other than
in the
edition.
Preface.
Not necessarily just the preface, but yeah, the table of contents is the first showing of it.
Okay.
I can see the reason by the organization. They put prayers for the living and hymns for the dead. Like player options are organized by genre. We'll say things that are alive, hunters of the undead, and then actual archetypes that are you being undead, becoming a ghost, becoming a lich. And I'm so used to having the analog within D&D subclasses or classes, but archetypes are more similar to subclasses for Pathfinder 2nd edition in the same spot. Like you've got all your classes here. This is organized more by content and genre, which confuses me for a little bit. I'm like, okay, that was the last archetype. Then I keep scrolling. I'm like, oh, wait, there's another one. Oh, there's another one. Wait, this was just after a bunch of companions. But then you realize after the companions comes a class that's centered around using companions. So it makes sense. I'm just not used to it. So I wanted to see if that like was something that came out to you guys either.
My only complaint I've ever had with Paizo stuff, and I talked about it a little bit later too, is their organization leaves a little bit to be desired because the way that D&D and WotC do it, they have a lot of art and flashy stuff along the page. And so it like fades into it. But Paizo, because they just write so much stuff, it's just sometimes it's just mounds of text and there's no art around it. There's maybe, flavor art on the sides, but just text. And sometimes the text bleeds over to the next page and then there's already another topic on that page. So organization sometimes for me does leave a little to be desired. But because of that, we get so much extra just writing content, which I do enjoy.
First time I was going through the book, it was a little confusing to find everything, but when I realized like, oh, this is organized in this way, then pretty quick. Yeah.
So is this something you've seen a lot in other content? I've read Secrets of Magic before, and it was kind of similar to that. But for all the other content you've read, T,
it's similar. Paizo has a very standard way of doing things, which is pretty much like Ryan was saying. It's just kind of how they do it, at least the way I've noticed.
Yeah, and I think that's fine for people that get into it and are used to reading the source material. It's going to be pretty standard for you. Like if I hadn't ever read 5th edition, I probably would have said something about the way they organize things and that it's not to my liking yet, which is why I don't want to say an overarching statement that it is bad, because I don't think it's fun to read. It's like a little surprise, to be honest.
I was checking too, as he was talking, that Guns and Gears is the same way, where the first 2 chapters are Gears related, and then the last 2 chapters before chapter 5 is guns related. And so breaks up the, again, very much like content genre wise.
Yeah. And with so much, like, not necessarily just fluff, but that's kind of the content term for it. It's all of the flavor, the fun stuff to read.
Yeah.
Being in that section, if you're a player, it makes it more of an experience going through, and you end up getting a lot more that's going to help you make your character if you care about reasons they're going to be in the world, or giving them motivations, or the anathema, I think, just things your character absolutely won't do that go against it. I really love how that in, and it doesn't work well within how other TTRPGs might organize things. But I ended up really liking the vast majority of the archetypes here. I know it's not a full-blown class, but something that you get to and you just bonk it into something that you've already built. Yeah. Which is fun.
Yeah, I was thinking that something Paizo seems to do pretty well is focusing on like the helping you make your character. Maybe not necessarily like building the blocks together. Obviously the archetypes help with that, but like they'll have recommendations on this is how people might view you. This is how you might view yourself. This is what you might be doing. Giving you lots of options, which I really enjoy. So chapter 1, Prayers for the Living, is what we were talking about before, was the people that are fighting the undead. And there's some juicy stuff in here. It's got the Exorcist is in here.
Hollowed
Necromancer, Soul Warden, and Undead Slayer. I personally love the Exorcist a ton.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my.
It has a very neat mechanic going with it.
It is very cool. For some reason, I was really drawn to the Soul Warden a lot, which is I don't think typical for me, but I just loved how it works, and like little weird quirky things about the sigil you draw lasting for a year. Of course, you can repaste it on there, but I don't know, the psychopomp stuff and being an honorary one, essentially martyring people to the dead, is interesting. It's something that we deal with a lot in our 5th edition campaign that we've played for quite some time.
Yeah,
so maybe it's just grown on me.
Point out, I forgot to say this a second ago, but this is the only book I think I've ever read, at least off the top of my head, that there was just, and I counted it here, 6 pages of just pure lore and text. No mechanics, nothing. It's just right off the beginning of chapter 1. And I love it. I love that Paizo knows what they are about, and they go in for just filling people with the lore and the cool, fun information without having any mechanics directly tied into what Geb is telling us about.
Yeah, T, when you read stuff like this, does it make you want to get more into the lore side of Pathfinder? Or I'm curious.
I usually do skim through the lore, so I have a general idea of what's going on. It's just I don't have enough time to actually read through everything when I want to. And then if I do get a chance to read it, sometimes I forget, and I knew how much there was to read, and I haven't gone back to it to read it again. So
yeah, I feel that big time. But it's a lot of fun. I don't know. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'll just say, as someone that doesn't play a lot of Pathfinder, just I don't use any of the mechanics that are in here. Just reading the flavor text got me so many ideas for fun things that I would love to put it to my game.
I'm wanting to get to the point with Pathfinder, because right now I still need a lot of help in terms of character building. And for those of you that are maybe new to Pathfinder or mostly watch our D&D content, it's hard to train your brain to see an ability and then immediately place it into how it can synergize with stuff later down the line of Pathfinder. It's a little bit more intricate in terms of building than D&D is. So whenever there are books like these, it's a big training session for me to read through a new archetype for the Exorcist and see how it can maybe work with other things. Because at first glance, Pathfinder seems like it's straightforward when you start. You've got some abilities that you can use, and you pretty much use them most every combat, and then they recharge, and that's it. But it gets way more complicated later.
Yeah, and I guess it can be, too, if you just follow your archetype. You're like, all right, this is my class. I'm just going to do this. But, I mean, the balancing this, I don't envy their jobs, because the amount of different feats that you could combine together and cobble I imagine it's got to be tough figuring out how this all works together.
Yeah.
The nice thing about the balancing, at least combat wise, is the system that they use allows for all of this customization on the player's part. It's very easy for GMs to just add an extra monster or add a weak or elite template to adjust the encounter difficulty appropriately.
Yeah. Now for these classes, I guess there's not an insignificant amount in this book.
No.
At all. And they all have feats up to like feat 12, feat level 12, or however they're referred to as. The feats T, whenever they've got the number next to them, you get it at that level.
That's that level that you can access it.
Correct. So there's a ton of depth here, but I kept reading this and I wanted to know how much you think these archetypes could fit in a campaign that wasn't centered around undead. I think that's really important.
The thing with archetypes is they aren't your identity as a class. So archetypes are completely extra. Like if you didn't have them, which is generally how the game is supposed to be played, they still function perfectly fine. Your classes will work perfectly 100%. But with the archetypes, they add a lot more flavor to your character, at least the way I see it. You can add a lot of intricate ways to build because they add like efficient ways to do certain actions like striding and attacking or recall knowledge attack, whatever. And for campaigns that might not center on it, obviously you probably want to talk to your GM if it's a homebrew campaign to try to incorporate as much as they can within reason. But you don't need them to like make your character efficient.
That's good to know too. And something else I noticed, first I used to think backgrounds compared from Pathfinder 2nd edition to other TTRPGs is they give you so much. And then I started reading again, and it's really just the way you get your specialization and your skills in particular. Whether you want to have more focus in Constitution or some sort of lore skill check. It's flavor and just a little bit of boost to your stats, which felt at first when I was reading it again and kind of understanding it lackluster. Then I went, wait a minute. No, it's hell of a lot of fun. And not tying it to race or whatever background or ancestry they've got, which is really fun too.
I love that they have the duality of the common backgrounds, like you're saying, are the more kind of typical. You don't really get too much fun. Then the rare backgrounds is where they always get into like some weird, wacky stuff. Like I love the willing host background in here, where it's like host spirit is inside of you and can do stuff and control things. It's super interesting how if you are allowed by your GM to use one of these rare options, you can really change the way that the game is played.
Yeah, it's super, super cool. Some of them, T's told me that they don't get too crazy, which is surprising because I've heard other people say other stuff. Then I read them again and they're not obscenely more powerful than the base ones, but they're rare for a reason. And I think they use that term to give them more special things on it.
There are some that are definitely more powerful. Like in the base book, I think one of them is Amnesiac, which gives you 3 ability boosts, which nothing else does that, and that's a lot stronger. So some of them are definitely a little bit stronger than others. For the most part, they're all pretty equal with interesting little flavor twists that you can do.
Yeah. So while you're looking at your characters for the first chapter, Perish of Living, and 2 Hymns for the Dead, you're learning about the Reanimator archetype, and then a couple of pages later, you get deities of undeath, and you're like, oh, these are the gods that I can read through and start worshiping. And it's not insignificant at all. There's art for a lot of them, lore for how they fit in, how you might worship them, what you do and you don't do when you're worshiping these people. It's the more and more I read this sort of archetype and new class option structure, the more I start enjoying it weirdly. So I'm influenced like that. But if you're looking for the ability to play a ghost, be haunted by somebody, become a lich, which interestingly enough, it's not, here's your level 1 witch option or level 4, which most of these things start showing up. I think it's, you have to have 6 level casting ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. So level 9.
So it's not small, and it still doesn't say, or it still doesn't like diminish the craziness that becoming a lich is. Also the lich art in there, kind of cool.
The art.
Yeah. It's really cool. But yeah, I really enjoyed reading through these and kind of understanding, hey, this is how a necromancer or undead could be, rather than in like 5th edition. It's hard to be a necromancer at early levels because you will die instantly. Or very squishy. So it's been fun.
Yeah, I like that because it starts off with the because I say the playing undead section is probably one of the highlights of this book. Because I remember when it was announced and people were getting excited for it, talking about how I could play a skeleton, I could be a lich, how cool, vampire. And I like the unique benefits that the undead PCs can get. It can change the role playing options. But then, and it's interesting about the balance with this. There's some things that I find I get why they're the way they are. Like, to me, I would think a skeleton and certain undead would be immune to disease and poison and stuff. They address this a little bit in the optional options for ghosts, saying that if your GM's okay with it, then you can add in this option. You can be completely incorporeal if your GM's okay with it. And so I'm sure you can always tweak that a tiny bit if you talk to your GM about it. But I get why a character is not just completely immune to some damage types.
Yeah, I found that funny too. There was, I think you're resistant or like level 1 resistance to certain diseases, but you can still be inhibited by them so that you're still playing with mechanics of the game.
Yeah.
But I think it could be fun needing all of your enemies that the GM makes to have a ghost touch rune to hit you.
Yeah, they do touch on the negative and like positive healing aspects where you have to get taken the negative healing to be able to heal.
Yeah. Or a specific skill feat for medicine, because you can't use medicine on a zombie the same way that you would do on a person.
Yeah, it's super. Yeah, they talk about how you like can be suturing up their gigantic gash and stuff. Really cool.
Yeah, so I think that broaches the subject of it's not 100% smooth just bringing an undead character into your party. There's going to be mechanics that are different. Maybe you forget and you do like some sort of AoE healing and now your undead party member's dead. You guys play a little bit more gritty and take backs aren't a thing because you've taken too many back before and it's more fun this way. And then there's the sort of aspect of, this is kind of what my character would do and you're playing an undead and maybe you're a ghoul and you hunger for flesh and you're doing a rest. And you've gone a little too long without eating food, and your party members looking a little extra tasty.
Or just walking around town. Imagine just having like this shambling mound of a ghoul walking towards you.
Yeah.
A little zombie. I mean, my God. So already don't like tieflings or something. They're really not going to like these guys.
There's already analogs.
Most civilized places won't like having the undead around.
No.
Yeah. So that's the interesting thing. I think they give a few options to either explain or outright tell you you might be playing a different campaign in general if everybody's undead, which would be fun. But I also enjoy, and it's particularly in the lore for some of the undead gods or just deities that people can follow, that some people see the undead as these abominations that need to be destroyed, and some see them as like those other archetypes you've seen, things that need to be ushered into the next life, or as beings like you and I. They make sure to show it as not one-sided. And to give you the tools or assumptions to make a world where they are just like any other creature that exists, which is important, I think. Just to be able to play a game and to make sure that people are doing what their character would do, but also having fun.
Or playing a game,
playing a game to play a game and have fun, not to... sometimes anybody that does the survival mods in Skyrim, like the freezing if you stay outside for too long, I get it. Without the sensory feeling of all of it, I'm just like, man, I'm just fighting over numbers here. Which is all
is that the frostbite mod or something?
Something like that. I understand it. It's just not
the
fun
campfire
for
one.
Hey, I play with those mods.
No,
I have to. Yeah,
I play for a little bit, and then I'm just like, why did I mod Skyrim?
Yeah, it can be fun for a little bit, and then it can get a little cumbersome.
The fun is modding,
so making sure things aren't cumbersome, I would say, and fun for everybody that's jumping in. But ultimately, like I really love the first 2 chapters, and it does feel like a good value if these are the sorts of types of characters you're wanting to play. You're not going to be wanting for options. There's so many things here and combinations you can do. If you did math, it would probably be near infinite. The sort of options that you could take.
They have, we didn't really talk about, they have items in here. They got folk remedies, which I think are really cool. They got some companions. I love the old friend companion. I love that it's a dachshund, a little cute puppy following you around. They got different, like you can make a skeletal mount. I mean, there's so much. I got to talk about this. My favorite section, I think, of these first 2 chapters, maybe not my favorite, but the ghost stories section at the end is, I think we need more things like that can spur ideas for GMs and players.
Yeah, it's very cool. I'll say
give them the tools.
There's one option that I didn't like in the necromancy feats that you can get. It's kind of a minor nitpick, but it's a 14th level feat, and I believe it's called the Undead Sepulcher or something like that. Let me find
in the Hall of Necromancer?
Just in the necromancy feats itself, just before Reanimators, Sepulchral Sublimation. Gotcha. So this is a 14th level feat, and you need to have at least one undead minion that you permanently control, right? Seems interesting. Making permanent undead minions is a bit of a hassle, but okay. you can sacrifice this minion to cast a spell that is half the level of the minion. That seems neat. It's a free spell. It doesn't use up your spell slot. It has to be a necromancy spell. Great. Okay. How much GP does it cost to make a minion? Let's say we're making a 10th level minion so we can cast a 5th level spell. 3,000 gold to make this minion. All right. A spell scroll, 5th level spell scroll is 150 gold. It hurts. I like the theme. It hurts me.
At 14th level, I mean, how much money are you going to have at that point? Really, it's going to depend on campaign, but
you'd have a lot. But at that point, you're just gaining one action, and you can fail the ritual to make undead. Like, if you fail it, there's a lot of negative benefits, or not benefits. There's just a lot of negatives to it. So you might as well just stock up on a bunch of scrolls. It just takes an action to take them from your bag. You're literally only saving one action, and you're losing a lot of money for it.
Wow.
This spell I like is the shambling, or I guess a spell I do
shambling
like.
Horror.
Yeah, shambling horror makes me unnaturally happy. I don't know what about it does, but just the idea of this shambling mount, this gargantuan thing, makes me happy.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier too. No, I don't know. I particularly really enjoyed the ghost stories portion too, because those sorts of tools you get to give players and people and DMs the ability to create things within this space is super useful. I'm not knowledgeable on spells and what's going to be useful as well. So T, if at any point you want to get more specific on any sorts of things like that, feel free to, because that's exactly the stuff that I love when you mention. But yeah, that's where I'm sitting on the first 2 chapters at least.
What would you think of? What would you say is your favorite archetype of the undead ones?
Oh.
I like the Lich too much.
Yeah?
I really like Lich.
I like Lich. It just doesn't feel like it hits as hard as I would like Lich to
do. Like, mechanically, it is very weak. There's only one good feat, and it's for wizards specifically.
But
which is it is a Lich, and I have played a character that was going to become a Lich because they're a necromancer. But this archetype, it hurts me a little bit, but I would definitely take it just for flavor.
Yeah.
Is the art influencing me? Maybe. Maybe. But no,
my favorite was the mummy. Like the mummy a lot.
Mummy's good.
The art for that's also really good. Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
It's so much fun just getting to read through these and see how many tools they get and options that are presented, because whenever there are other TTRPGs that release things, it feels like a lot less. And it's crazy that all this is super optional and things that not everybody's going to see ever. It's really cool.
Paizo puts a lot of love in their products.
Absolutely. All right. What's up next?
Chapters 1 and 2. So now we got chapter 3, the Grim Crypt. And this is the bestiary. The gigantic.
Which is how you say that word, apparently. Yes. And I hate it.
Bestiary.
There is no A there, so it makes sense, but there are beasts in it.
Gigantic section of monsters. And I love it.
How many pages? It's 173 pages. Sorry, no, it's not. It is 103 pages.
That's a good bit.
Bestiary, which is a ton of just undead things. Again, one of the most common enemy types and NPC types to be gracing the plains of your TTRPG plane today or tomorrow, depending on if you get this book. These are phenomenal.
The art.
I don't use, and I haven't GM'd for Pathfinder yet, and the art, yes. So I'll be taking a backseat for a moment and giving my input, but you guys kind of jump into it.
There's so much that I, as a GM, want to use from these, and I love the fact that Paizo takes a lot of inspiration from real-world cultures. Yes. Like, immediately when I was scanning through it, I was just like, Onryo, Japanese culture, and I loved it. There's just so much stuff that you can use, and the templates that they give, you can literally put them on any monster. It doesn't have to be an undead monster. Now you turn it undead. It's great.
Here you go. You don't have to wait for us to make a specifically undead like Lich Dragon. You just throw this on there if you want.
Pretty much.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the section that made me. I felt this with every Paizo bestiary, is the way that they organize their pages can hurt my head a little bit. Where they'll have and maybe it's better in physical because I've never held one of their physical books, but like for example, even the first monster, the beheaded creatures, they'll have the taunting skull at the bottom. It bleeds over to the next page, the same stat block. So it breaks it in half. And it makes it just hurts my head to have to like scroll back and forth to see what this creature does. And this is not the first place that it happens. It is very rare. It doesn't happen all the time. And it's usually the same category, so the beheaded creatures.
Yeah, I will say, if you had this in book form, since it's an even and an odd page, wait,
left and right.
Because page 1 theoretically would be the cover. It's a coin toss as to which page it might be.
It should be.
It's my hope. It's my hope. Because page 5 of the preface. I don't know.
Because the way the art is, when you look at it, it would be connected. Yeah, so it would be left and right, which is better. It's definitely a lot better for sure.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. But we've seen that complaint before, and it would not have landed on the same page. But managing these sorts of things with the amount of content that they're throwing in.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mounds of text. So I understand. I appreciate it. And when it saves us pages, we're saving the planet. So
absolutely.
Physical book, it is left and right because the little sidebar on there is always on the right side of the book because they use that for the quick navigation in the physical books.
That makes a lot more sense now. Okay, Festering Undead.
My favorite monsters here, though, Fiddling Bones, incredible little like the bone guy playing it's like the devil came down to Georgia kind of. Then we got the Ghoul, GHUL, super cool, and the Buddha. I love these guys.
The corpse root was freaking me out.
The corpse death coach was cool too.
Yeah, that was what was getting me. There's a lot of nasty things in here.
So good.
Yeah.
And like, you can't tell me you don't want to transport your near death or just party that's in a really scary place on a death coach.
Oh my!
Which reminds me of Bloodborne. Try to get to the the Bloody Pal. I don't remember what that place is called, but it's very similar to that.
Canehurst? No.
Canehurst.
That sounds right, but it might be
wrong. That's exactly it. No, I mean, then you've got like a dude that's got no skin and he's just like ripping his veins and blood out at you, and
all of those in an adventure path. They're terrifying. Genuinely terrifying to fight.
I wouldn't see it. And then you've got like Fiddling Bones, which obviously is like a reference of more culture there. There's just a lot of backgrounds that I don't think I've seen this much variety in terms of just undead coming from different cultures and different art styles and different beasts. I don't know. It's just phenomenal. And they're not just slams and claw attacks.
Each creature has a piece of art with it, pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Love
some
that.
even get a whole. There's some lore that gets dropped after a couple of them that seems relevant when they come out. Let me see.
Yeah, they've almost all of them have their own little blob of text just to be like, this type of undead comes from this whatever.
Yeah.
Like the grappling spirit. Like what even?
Oh yes, I want to use that.
Maybe
you'll see it.
So cool. No. These monsters are rough and scary, man.
Yeah, I'd almost recommend just getting the book for this. I mean, there's so many creatures that you just keep scrolling.
Like basically just undead snake skin.
Oh,
it's really great. So, I mean, while there is literally over 100 pages of this, we can't go through every individual one. T's already mentioned a couple, but if you want to jump into any of them, if you do have notes on one that you particularly liked, feel welcome to.
I don't have any particular notes, but one of my favorite is the zombie mammoth.
Zombie mammoth,
right at the end. Okay. It's right at the end of the bestiary.
It's like my man Manny from Ice Age.
Yeah, I just like the fact that there's a specific entry for a zombie mammoth.
Raw nerve, dude.
Raw nerve's scary to look at.
Yeah,
imagine a fight with the raw nerve and the muscle man from earlier.
Nope.
Gotta be so cool. This is on my way scrolling back down to the mammoth. God. Yeah, for you DMs, I don't know. I feel there is far too much value in the inspiration you're going to get for and from these monsters to not have this. It's $15 for far too many things. So I was blown away when I got to this section. I don't think I've seen... There was another book that came out that T was scrubbing through for the monsters. It might have been a supplement, but it had a lot of like mind flare-y stuff that I was super interested in. This was a while ago, like a month or two. Yeah. No, they really knocked it out of the park with this.
I'm trying to remember what book it may have been. One of the third-party books, like the Battles of
I think it was a
Bestiary,
third-party book. It was something like that. A bunch of whales, man. Yeah. As for the Bestiary, we've already talked about the value that it adds and given you a couple of things here. So I think that's pretty much where we go from there. The next part is locations.
Lands of the Dead.
Yeah. And this is it goes from 176 to 184. So it's just under 20 pages or so. 10, just under 10. Is my math terrible today? It's over 10.
I'm not calling it out because I don't know.
It's a chunk of it. It goes from 176 to 188, actually. Yeah.
There you go.
So we're sitting there. So what is tossed into this section of the book?
I love this section. They describe different realms of undead that exist in the world of Golarion, which I don't know a lot of the lore that Golarion has, but I just like the lore that's included in here. And I don't think this is specific to Golarion. You could easily take any of these things and put them into your own homebrewed world. That's where I get all these ideas from. And like I said earlier, stuff like this I wish was included more often in official tabletop RPG stuff, because it gives me as a GM so many exciting things to think about, to use this area on Nemrith, no Kotoria, and be like, that's really cool. I want to take this from there and then combine it with this idea I had over here, and then you can just put it all together. And I wish I love things like this, and it's one of my favorite sections in the book.
Yeah, it's a very non-insignificant, and honestly, the artwork almost takes a backseat here, though it's amazing, and it comes up in certain portions. This is going to be the largest chunks of text that you're getting in this entire book. They are not slouching on it. They go way into it, talking about specific fashion and sciences and education in these areas. This is a tool that's going to help you quite possibly create an entire campaign.
Yeah, I wish it was longer. That's my only complaint.
Yeah. So this isn't just going to be hey, this is how you make a plane of dread or a different location in the world. Like legitimately, this could be, in addition to the GM's handbook, essentially, I don't know the particular term for it, and the player's guide as well, something that will allow you to make an entire campaign, like hands down, for $14, which is kind of insane.
It's good.
Yeah,
I like the Path of Valenhall, but I'm also, I love like Norse type stuff, so it's really cool.
Yeah, I didn't get too much into Norse stuff, but the artwork is actually insane. Though it's a giant ice pool with undead people crawling out of it, which has always been super interesting. Destiny 2 had a really interesting sort of frozen under the ice sort of thing going on there, and it's always been really fun.
I'm recalling lore correctly, that would probably be a hole made from a lindworm, if I'm, which is like the dragon type things that are up there in the
that'd be fun.
The realm of the Mammoth Lords, I think is what it's called.
Mammoth Lords,
something like
you
that.
You get the mammoth in there as well, and they've got some maps as well, which is super awesome. But actually, no, I'm getting to the March of the Dead.
Yeah, the adventure.
The next portion.
So that's
how do you feel about it?
Yeah, chapter 5, March of the Dead. I have always said, and Brax can back me up on this, I've always said that the adventure paths and stories created by Paizo, I think, are head and shoulders above any other adventure that I've read by any tabletop RPG company. And this one is, I would say, not an exception. The writing is so much more engaging to me and interesting to me than other products. And the atmosphere is just incredible. So I'm a fan of everything in here.
Yeah. I don't know, T. I get sketched out by these things because now I play for somebody who does Pathfinder and D&D. So I'm like, do I want to spoil myself on this? I didn't read through all of it, but my question for both of you, and T, you can stop me before we get there if you wanted to give your thoughts, but like ease of use, how they structure things. How is it?
I feel like this book is decently structured, or at least this adventure specifically is decently structured. It tells you like, this is what happens at the start. You're there for X amount of days, whatever. And these are the possible endings that you can do. And this is all the stuff that happens in between, depending on what your players do. I think it's all laid out pretty much in order as it should happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty standard for their adventure path. Again, my only complaint being that there's just like mountains of text sometimes, but again, there's so much content for them to get into you, and these. It's not like it's not like there's a lot of pages in there, but they get so much in that I appreciate the amount of work that they're putting into it.
My biggest issue that I have with Paizo published adventures is they give you so much lore that is great, but it's very difficult to get it to the players because this is stuff that the GM is supposed to know. It's just like, oh, this creature's here because of this reason. It's just like the players would love to know this, but I have nothing, no way to tell them. Yeah. Just like, unless they crit on a roll or something, it's just like, there's no reason they should know this.
Yeah, and I think
we've talked about that before, actually.
Yes.
It kind of goes into a theory of acting where the more information you know about your character, even if it's not in the script, can help. And it's there's some of that here, but like how much of the background of this toothpick it used one time on this tooth and now it's dead, but it's got a hole there and it still holds the toothpick in its mouth. The players will cry if they hear the story, but I don't know. So it's interesting, but I think you'll get a good sense of like, hey, I don't really need to know this. And you can kind of leave it out. So I have the same critique there. And they add art for a monster I wanted it, to have art in the best year, the Drake skeleton. I was like, hell yeah. It's chilling there. It's super cool. And it starts from 3, right?
Yes, this is a level 3 adventure, and I think if you want to continue after it, you end up at level 4.
Yeah. So super quick. And you're like, wait, level 4? This is like how many pages? It's a lot. There's a chunk.
Yeah.
That's just the amount of stuff that you've got to do as a GM to get stuff prepped for your players if you want to jump into this. I mean, it's really high quality. And it ends in a great spot.
I was thinking when you were talking about my other issue with Paizo official adventures is that it seems to me that this would be very hard to just use this book at the table to run this adventure because because of the way there's a few bolded things here and there, but it's so hard to figure out, okay, so this is here, this is there, just mounds of text. There's not as much breaking points that I think I would prefer. This to me seems like something I would have to parse through myself and create it in its own separate document to write down the important stuff.
I think that's mainly because this is a smaller adventure, so they don't have the same like bullet points that they do like in the Abomination Vaults. Every room is like, this is this room, here's all of the information that you need. But in this, it's just like, here's this area, and here's a block of text related to all of this area. So you definitely have to read through it like 1 or 2 times before you comfortably run this, I think.
Yeah. They're probably like, we got 15 pages to get this entire thing in. Let's just squeeze it.
Thankfully, they do have a kind of glossary of creatures by level as well.
Yeah.
So you can get the stat blocks ready, print them out, and then the index that immediately follows that. But it's kind of where it ends. That's the book.
I mean, what a book, huh?
Yeah, it takes, like, I won't lie, it is a mental work for me to get through Pathfinder stuff, but that just says how much content they're putting into it. At least for somebody that's pretty new. So if you're like me and you've GM'd a little bit for 5e and have not done much for Pathfinder, but you played a lot in both, or at least a moderate amount in 2nd edition, this is how you might feel about it. But again, I'm only one person. We've got 2 other perspectives here, so I thought it was super important to get somebody like T, who we didn't talk too much about mechanics, but the times that we did, T immediately jumped in and let us know where we could fix something, or a perspective on feats and how the level worked, like how Lich still doesn't feel super powerful and it only works for like wizards with one of their feats that are really good. It's just super helpful to have that. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah.
Do appreciate it. Yeah. Any last thoughts from either of you?
I mean, there's so many options. This is so much. If you're interested in Unlife, then this is your cup of tea. I mean, it's a cup of tea. It's for $15 as a PDF. This is a ridiculous steal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paizo always releases their PDFs really cheap. So
yeah,
honestly, most of them are just worth picking up just to have them.
It's just crazy to think, like, looking at some of these full page artworks and thinking like they got paid way more, hopefully, than $15 to make this.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to think. I'm pretty sure with Paizo stuff, if you buy the physical, you also get a PDF.
Yes,
you order from the website.
Yeah, and then there's also the subscriptions that you can do. There's one for the adventure books. There's one for the content character books, stuff like that. So there's a couple different subscriptions you can do that help pay the people that need the money.
Paizo, it goes. Looking out for the little man here.
Hell yeah. All right. So I guess if you didn't tell at this point from the first thing we said, but we do recommend the book. Again, just to restate it, if you're a player and you're not interested in undead stuff, maybe not. But if you're a player and you're kind of interested in DMing, I think this is going to give you a lot of inspiration to jump into it. So maybe do make that purchase. But in terms of getting in touch with us, we do have social media at Dungeon Crawl Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We use Twitter a little bit more as of late. We've been talking to some big people. I don't want to brag too much.
No name drops or anything.
No name drops or anything. Paizo has done like one of our things before. Comment on Instagram. I don't remember what happened. It was a while ago.
I mean,
but we have an email as well. It's thedungeoncrawlpod@gmail.com if you want to get in touch with us for any sort of other work, long form things that cannot be contained in a Twitter DM, or you just slide in the DMs, whatever you want to do. Outside of that, we also have a Discord, which is in the link tree below whatever sort of form that you're listening to, watching on right now, that's going to be the place that we have a lot of our games that we play. At least 5th edition Zelda has been on a little bit of a hiatus. Should be returning next week.
Yeah, and the Pathfinder campaign that we'll be starting at some point is also on hold for right now.
Yeah.
Is it? Wait, which one?
The one that was the beginner box. Then they had a TPK.
The beginner box one is on.
Oh yeah, I was there for that one actually. I jumped in for a little bit.
But they'll be doing a new campaign at some point. So if you're interested, maybe you get involved.
So if you jump in the Discord and you chat with us for a little bit and you see somebody is in one of the live ones and their camera's on, don't get too scared. It means you're playing the game. It doesn't mean that they're waiting for you to jump in and turn your camera on as well. It means feel free to come and spectate. See if you want to play with us.
Someone wants to run a Dungeon World.
Someone was talking about Dungeon World. Yeah.
So if someone is interested, it's a Powered by the Apocalypse kind of D&D-esque game. If you're interested, then hop in there. If someone's interested about playing one.
Yeah. So there's like massive text that I've been jumping in because I've been all over the place in terms of Discord. It's always nice to see the growth that's going on there and what people are doing. There's something super interesting that was posted recently, kind of a Fire Emblem style like relationship system. I don't know exactly how it will work with living people, but it seemed really cool, at least. So if you're interested in those sorts of things, jump in. It's in the link tree below. Also in the link tree is our Patreon. If you ever feel like supporting us, it's something that always helps. We may be separate right now, but a lot of the equipment we're using is paid in part, even just a small amount, by people like yourselves and the people rolling across the screen at the moment.
Like PBS.
Decided to support us. Yeah.
People like you.
People like you. We need you. So feel free to jump in there if you have the extra cash to support us. Make sure you support yourself first. But that's all I've got.
Yeah, so I was thinking about telling this earlier, but I got we dived right in, which I'm happy about. I went to the Ren Fair yesterday with my partner and her family, and it was super fun. But they have a really cool like museum, like a mythical museum that you can walk through, and I got lots of ideas like for this. But it was super hot. I was wearing a sick costume, looking good, and it was so hot that I'm sweating bullets. Forgot to put on deodorant, so that was a terrible mistake.
It's like a Smash tournament.
Oh my god! Yeah. Thankfully, no one could smell me because there's so many. There's like elephants and feces and stuff. So luckily, my stench melded with air, so it was okay.
Right.
But it was so hot, I actually died. I passed out and I went into another. I saw the light. Luckily, though, my girlfriend had taken a few feeds into necromancy and could revive me as her companion. So now I'm now the old friend companion. I was brought back. So nice to see you. But while I was gone and I interacted with Orcus a little bit, don't want to talk about that. But Orcus, surprisingly, is a big fan of Dungeon Crawl. He even mentioned to me, that's why he let me come back. I mean, first of all, he's all about the undead and wanted to bring me back anyway. But he let me come back as my girlfriend's companion because he said he rated us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts not too long ago. And he was like, dude, Orcus, or he said, tell all your friends, your listeners, to go to Apple Podcasts and say, Orcus sent me. He wants to, get some more followers of Orcus. So, I mean, I don't want to say we're sponsored by Orcus or anything, but we're pretty close.
So hold on. You tell me you did a follow for follow with Orcus?
Well, life for follow, really. He brought me back. It allowed me to come back, I guess. So kind of like a follow for follow, but
glorious.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that's about it. Again, T, if you've got any other final comments you want to toss out.
Want to shout anything out, T? Anything that you're doing?
Anything I'm doing, not particularly. Just running the Abomination Vaults game. The next book for Pathfinder, I think, is Outlaws of Arkenstars, which is the second part of the adventure. And there's also the next book, which is called. I had it pulled up and I lost it. Anyway, it's releasing 2 new classes, the Psychic and the Thaumaturge, which look really fun. Dark Archives, that's what it's called.
I mean, Paizo's constantly putting out new stuff.
I don't know how many people they got working. It's super, super crazy.
I looked at the playtest start. It looks fun.
Gosh. No, I want to either run. I think running Pathfinder would be a bit more. I want to play more Pathfinder. That's why I'm glad T does a lot of it, which is very surprising because he's already in many games. But as always, he's whatever direction he's in. He's been.
I think you're over. I don't know. You're somewhere over here. I don't know.
There? I'm just pointing.
Yeah, I'm over here. He's Braxton. That's T down there.
Thanks for coming, T. Dungeon Crawl, Dungeon Bungin. Cat got my tongue. They're not even around here anymore. Don't know what we're doing next week. That's going to be a banger episode.
Always something good.
See you guys next time. Thanks for calling with us.